The Times are reporting that Manchester City have launched legal action against the Premier League over what they claim are unlawful financial rules. The action by City is separate to the 115 charges they face, but could have a huge impact on the outcome of that hearing to come. Neither the club nor the Premier League are commenting on this at the moment, but our chief reporter, Kaveh Solokul, certainly is. So, first of all, Kaveh, what's the basis of their argument?
I think the first thing we should say is that this is a very good story, reported first by Matt Lawton in The Times this afternoon. And it is totally unprecedented because we have the situation where one of the Premier League's clubs, the champions, are suing the Premier League. And they will be arguing at this hearing that starts next Monday that some of the Premier League's own financial rules are unlawful. And they will argue that these rules are incompatible with UK competition law. Now, the rules of the Premier League are generally agreed by at least 14 of the clubs. And what Manchester City are basically saying is that the other clubs have been ganging up on them. And they will argue that they have been victims of discrimination by a tyranny of the majority. And they also say that they have noticed that there has been discrimination against Gulf ownership. And not only are they suing the Premier League, they also want damages, and they're seeking damages because of losses incurred as a result of the unfairness of these rules.
Goodness me.
So it doesn't get much more serious than this.
No, it doesn't. This is, like you say, unprecedented action from them. They're talking about these associated party transaction rules. Explain what that actually means and why they were put in place.
Well, it sounds quite complicated, but it is pretty simple. And the associated party transaction rules are part of the financial rules of the Premier League. And the reason you have financial rules is really to make sure that clubs do not go out of business, but also to make sure that there is competitive balance. So there is a sort of level playing field as much as possible between the clubs. Now, the financial rules basically say that really you should spend what you earn. So if you can earn more, you can spend more. And we have the associated party transaction rules in place so that if you own a club and you also own a connected business, you could get that connected business, say it's an airline or it's an energy company, to sponsor your club. And that would mean that you have extra money coming into your club.
You haven't earned it as such.
You haven't earned it. Well, you may have earned it, but to make sure that you've earned it, what happens now is that independent auditors make sure that the deal is fair market value. So what that connected business is paying you is the market value. It's not paying an inflated sum. So you are not getting around the rules and putting more money into your own club by inflating the amount of the deal. It's not just to do with commercial deals as well, it's also to do with transfers. Because we've got the situation now where a lot of clubs are part of multi-club ownership groups. And you've seen the situation where one club can get a player from another club that's part of the same ownership group on loan or buy that player. Now, the Premier League obviously want to make sure that the transfer fee paid for that player is fair market value. So you're not just moving players around different clubs in your ownership group and getting an unfair advantage. So that is why you have these associated party transaction rules. They are quite controversial. Some clubs think you shouldn't have them at all, and that is what Manchester City will be arguing.
Yeah, so my question is, do you think they'll have much sympathy from the other clubs in terms of this, or would they, will lots of them be just watching to see what goes on? But, would there be lots of people backing Manchester City in this?
I think the majority of clubs are in favour of the rules as they are, but I think it's pretty close. And according to Matt Lawton in The Times, the Premier League have asked the other clubs to get involved in this case, for instance, by providing witness statements. And Matt believes that between 10 and 12 clubs have backed the Premier League. Now, obviously, that leaves 8 other clubs who would be in favour of amending or replacing or getting rid of these APT rules altogether. But it gives you a window into what is going on behind the scenes at the Premier League. For quite a long time, it was quite settled and everybody was moving in the same direction, although frequently there were disagreements and bust-ups. And we had, before the European Super League came along, the sort of big clubs tended to vote together on a lot of the issues. But ever since then, and ever since Manchester City have been hit by these 115 charges, the landscape seems to have changed. And every Premier League shareholders meeting that I've covered, it's very difficult to work out who is going to vote which way. And there's lots of different alliances being formed and people are voting in different ways on different issues.
So what does it mean for those 115 alleged breaches of the financial rules for City? Where does that leave? Because that's due to be heard, November?
Yeah, I think that hearing is going to be in November. Now, that is a separate issue, but in a way it's connected. Manchester City have been accused of breaking the Premier League's financial rules from 2009 to 2018. They, of course, insist that they have done absolutely nothing wrong and they will be defending themselves at this hearing. But some of those charges are to do with sponsorship deals with associated parties. So if Manchester City can win this case next week and prove that these rules are unlawful, then you would think that that would blow a pretty big hole in the Premier League's case when it comes to a lot of the 115 charges. OK,
my final question is, say they do win their case against the Premier League, what will the future of football in this country look like?
Well, if they win this case, then I think in the best case or the worst case scenario, depending how you look at it, you could have a situation where owners could do much bigger commercial deals with connected businesses that they also have a connection with, and also clubs who are part of multi-club groups could move players between their clubs much more easily, and there wouldn't be independent checks to see that the value of these deals and the value of these transfers were fair market value. So that could be somewhere we're heading. I think there's a bigger story to all this as well. Looking at it from a Manchester City point of view and perhaps the Manchester City owners' point of view, I think they believe they've come into English football, they've spent a lot of money. They've transformed the fortunes of not just a football club, but a whole area of Manchester City. Now, they believe they haven't done anything wrong. What have they done wrong? They've invested money. They have built arguably the best football club in the world. Probably, even though Real Madrid won the Champions League, a lot of people would say Manchester City are a better side and a better club. That is what they would say. So they would say, instead of us being lauded for our achievements and what we've built at Manchester City, why are we being harassed continually and accused of breaking these financial rules which have not really been thought through properly and which we believe are unlawful? And that is what they will try and prove at this hearing, which starts on Monday.
Goodness me. We'll talk to you then. Thanks, Calvé.